It is a human instinct to travel, to explore, to adventure, and to wonder. So it is no wonder to me that the high god of the Germanic and Nordic people would be known as the Wanderer. I believe that a lot can be learned from the polytheistic gods of any religion because they all symbolize things that are innate and instinctual to the human species. But very specifically, what I specialize in is the Nordic and Germanic mythologies. And I think that the gods and goddesses of the Nordic and Germanic mythologies can teach us a lot about ourselves and how to navigate and move in a proper way in our modern world. The Nordic and Germanic people were polytheistic, meaning that they believed in multiple gods or goddesses, but they seemed to place an emphasis upon one god or goddess at a time over the others. And sometimes this would be Freya, sometimes it would be Freyr, sometimes it would be Thor, sometimes it would be Odin. Most of the time, though, it was Odin, which is why I'm starting this series with Odin, or Wotan in Proto-Germanic. And this practice is known as henotheism. It is acknowledging other gods and goddesses, but it is putting one in a primary position in a central role. Now, Odin represented many things, but he was a war god, he was a psychopomp. He seemed to represent the psychedelic experience, and I've done videos on this before. You can find them on my YouTube channel or in my other TikToks. But primarily, he represented two unique functions. He was the god of wisdom, and he was the god of traveling, exploration, and he was nicknamed the Wanderer. To represent his many functions, Odin had many names, well over 100 names, and there are many names that are debatable that we don't quite know or understand yet. But some of these names that we see are names like Farmagnuther, which means the journey empowerer, or we see Gangleri, which means the one who is tired from walking or wandering. And then we see names that are just very straightforward and to the point, like Vafuther, which means the Wanderer. And this is all indicative of Odin's wandering and explorative aspects. But when we see Odin represented within the mythologies, within the Eddas and in the sagas, his traveling is always associated with the pursuit of knowledge and information, and deeply involves the pursuit of wisdom. For instance, he travels to the norns at the roots of the world tree, the cosmos, so to speak, and he asks them for various information into the future and to the past to gain information about the world and the universe, the cosmos in its totality. We also see that he travels up the Yggdrasil, which connects the 9 realms or the 9 worlds, and he hangs himself upon the Yggdrasil to gain the wisdom of the runes. And we also see that he travels through the realm of the giants to get to Mimnir's well, to sacrifice his eye to take a drink from Mimnir's well to gain wisdom, which the well was said to offer. And then within the sagas, we see that various heroes or characters meet Odin again and again and again, and every time that they meet him, he gives them little bits and pieces of wisdom, which later turns out to help them on their journeys or on their explorations. And so this can teach us something in our modern world and in our personal lives, that traveling is associated and connected with the growth of knowledge and the attainment of wisdom. That the more you travel, the more you explore, the more you adventure, the more that you wonder, the more wisdom that you will gain. And this is something that is very much known through all cultures. And I believe this is why we, of all species, have gained so much information, intellect, and knowledge, because we explore more than any other species upon this planet. Now, what we do with that is arguable, if that's for the best or for the worst, but nonetheless, we have gained information, wisdom, and knowledge that no other species on this planet has yet to access. But in our modern world, the capitalistic mentality has made it extremely expensive to travel. But you do not have to spend a lot of money to travel, and that's something that a lot of people forget, that you can be a tourist in your own town, in your own community. All you have to do is go someplace new. You just tread a path that you have not tread before. You walk down a trail that you have yet to see. You go into a neck of the woods that you have yet to explore, and you see something new, because every time you see something new, you walk away with new insights. You walk away with new enlightenment, and you learn something new. Because one thing that traveling most certainly is stimulative. It stimulates new emotions and it stimulates new thoughts. And by stimulating new thoughts and emotions, it increases your own personal character. Within the Havamal, stanza 17, we actually see Odin giving this information, which is indicative of the growth of knowledge from traveling. In the Havamal, we see, he who has seen and suffered much, and knows the ways of the world, who has traveled, can tell what spirit governs the men he meets. So Odin, in this aspect, is actually telling us that via traveling, via exploration, we can gain insight into life and into ourselves and into our fellow men. Yet another thing that we can learn from Odin via his representations in the Eddas and the Sagas in context to his traveling is that he appears to a man as a man. In other words, to a mortal as a mortal. But he appears to the gods as a god. He appears to the giants as a giant. In other words, he fits in. He blends in wherever he goes. And that goes back to the old motif of when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Don't stand out. Don't take your own prejudices and biases with you, but fit in, blend in, change, and try to adjust to your environment, because that unlocks you from the habit of stagnation. That releases you from the confining chains of your day-to-day life, and that keeps you in a fluid state of osmosis. And that is what enables you to grow, that is what enables you to learn, and that is what enables you to increase your knowledge and your wisdom. And then last but not least, I will give one more little piece from the Havamal, which is the words of the High One, the words of Odin. And this is found in stanza 35. And it says, "A guest must depart again on his way, nor stay in the same place ever. If he bides too long on another's bench, the loved one becomes loathed." In other words, what Odin is telling us here is to stay active, stay on the move, stay on the prowl, stay wandering. Because wandering and movement equals life. But sitting still, becoming stagnant, that is how one becomes locked in a cocoon of habit. And habit is not conducive to growth. Habit is not conducive to life. Habit is not conducive to flourishing intellectually or spiritually. Stay on the move, and that is how you stay alive.